Hi everyone, my name's Bree and I work for the Hendricks County Soil and Water Conservation District, and today I'm going to show you a little demonstration and talk about soil. So what we're sitting in right now is a crop field. Last year this field had corn in it. You can kind of see some of the residue left over it. And currently there are grasses and legumes planted in here, which are called cover crops. And these are to protect our soil. So these keep the soil from eroding, which is when soil particles are picked up by water and leave the field. And it also prevents surface sealing, which is when the soil on the surface gets hit by rain, and it's almost like little bitty bombs going off, and it blows that soil apart, and then water can't get in anymore. It just seals the surface off. So when we think about soil, we think about our soil as being organic matter, oxygen, and also soil particles. And those are sand, silt, and clay. So in this demonstration, we're going to simulate a rainstorm. So when our soil is covered like this, it keeps our soil protected from erosion and also from the water particles that are going to hit it. And when our soil is protected and is covered with plants like cover crops or even some of the corn residue that's left over, that helps the water infiltrate into the soil better and keeps those soil pores and that oxygen in our soil. So what I'm going to do is take some saran wrap and sit it right over the top of this. So when I pour the water in, it's not like a waterfall coming out of the pitcher, and when I remove this, it'll simulate more of an even rain. So that's about an inch. So I'm going to remove the plastic wrap and let that water soak in. So when we talk about healthy soils, we want that water to infiltrate fast, because for any of our crops, or even if it's just at your house, like your garden or for flowers, you want all that water to go right into the ground and be accessible to those plant roots and also to those microbes that live in the soil. So as you can see, we poured that inch of water into this ring, and it is already gone. It is soaked down into that soil very quickly. So we call this a soil health system, because everything is working together like it would in nature, even though it's in a crop field. Our water has all soaked into the soil, so it's available for these plant roots to take up, just like it would be when the crops are in the field. And so now we're going to move on to the next demonstration, which is a different type of soil system. Welcome to part 2 of our soil demonstration. So in our first demo, you saw that ground had green crops growing on top of it, and those were our cover crops, so we're protecting our soil. Whereas this soil, you can see, is loose. There's really not much covering it except for some of the corn stalks that are left over from last year. So this soil has been tilled, and it has been worked with a piece of equipment to incorporate the crops from last year and also to break up the soil surface. So in a system like this, sometimes it is harder for water to infiltrate like it would in the previous demo that you saw. And that is because the sand, silts, and clays that make up our soil have been broken up, and we don't have any soil stability like we did during the last example. So when we don't have soil stability, when water hits the top of this surface, it acts like little bombs, and it makes these soil particles just bust apart like these. It just almost kind of looks like a flower. And when that happens, the soil is very susceptible to erosion and also to surface sealing, which you can see in some areas how there's cracks forming on top of the surface. And that's because those soil particles have made a crust on top of the surface, and it doesn't allow that water to get in to our plants or our crops. So if we keep our soil surface covered with cover crops, and other green materials that will help protect our soil and hold that stability, the aggregate stability that holds these clumps together so we don't have erosion, and also so our plant roots can go deep into the soil to access that water. So this example is the same as our last one. I'm going to use plastic wrap to give us a more even distribution of water. We're going to pour our water in like a rainstorm. Then we're going to remove the plastic wrap and see how fast it goes in. So this one is still going in rather quickly, but it still is taking longer than the last one, and the water is actually ponding inside of here. You can see that it hasn't quite sunk all the way in yet, and it's just very muddy. So this is where erosion happens, and this is also where our water can't get in to be accessible to our plants and the microbes that are underground. So as you can see how muddy this water is, when we get a rainstorm, if there's a creek or a river nearby, our soil is actually picked up with that water and will be washed away into those creeks and streams, which is not good for our fish or our wildlife. So we would like to see a system like we saw before, which is a soil health system that has green growing cover crops in the wintertime and also sometimes in the fall and summer along with their cash crops, which are corn and soybeans. So that concludes our discussion on soils and soil health systems. Thank you. And in our closing with our soils discussion, I just wanted to let you all know that after we've talked about these two separate systems, the soil health system and then also our conventional system like I'm standing in, so if you have exposed soil at your house, whether it's in your garden or your landscaping or even just your yard, try and keep that soil covered so we can keep it healthy and protect our soil and hold it in place where it is. Thank you.